Hello, Woodman Park School musicians. Ms. Lapierre here for another week of remote lessons. This week I have a book called The Man with the Violin. It is published by Annick Press and was written by Kathy Stinson and Dusan Petricic. So so Kathy Stinson is the author and Dusan Petricic, I am certainly saying that name incorrectly, is the illustrator. The Man with the Violin. Dylan was someone who noticed things. His mom was someone who didn't. One Friday in January was a day like any other until music. Here's Dylan and his mom. The high notes soar to the ceiling, the low notes swoop to the floor. All the notes swirl and sweep around the blur of people rushing here and rushing there. The music is telling an exciting story. It makes the hairs on the back of Dylan's neck tickle. Mom, wait! You can see there's a musical pathway there. The man with the violin sways this way and that. His fingers move quickly. His bow dances across the strings. The skittering notes make Dylan want to dance too. Then the music slows and the man's eyes close as if the music is carrying him from bustle, bustle, bustle to somewhere far, far away. Please, Mom, can we stop, please? If only they could listen for even a minute. Not today. The man with the violin leans forward. His music makes Dylan's skin hum. Someone begins shouting, blibbly blabbly blah blah blah. Dylan leans toward the musician, trying to hear. From the violin comes the saddest sound he has ever heard. Notice too that Dylan and the man with the violin are the only ones illustrated in color, and the music is illustrated in color. The man turns in his direction. Their eyes look, but the escalator pulls Dylan down, 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 and away. Bursting out of the tunnel, a loud clattering, Dylan strains to hear the music, but grumble, rumble, the train gobbles up. The faint notes with its roar. All day, the music Dylan heard that morning plays in his head. He's at school now. Kind of like the music has picked him up off the ground. Ever been in such a good mood it feels like kind of like you're floating? I think that's how Dylan feels right now. On the way home, he says, Mom, do you think maybe the man will still be there? His mom says, what man? Rain patters, dishes clatter, a voice on the radio drones on and until suddenly, music! Telling a story that makes the apartment bigger and brighter, Dylan shouts, that's the man in the station! The music fades. The voice on the radio says today over 1,000 people had the chance to hear one of the finest musicians in the world. Joshua Bell was playing some of the most elegant music ever written on one of the most valuable violins ever made. Yet few people even listened for a minute. Dylan says, I knew it. We should have stopped. We should have listened. Into a pot of bubbling water spills the spaghetti. Again, the musical story slips and slides through the air, and Dylan can almost see the man with the violin standing on tiptoes to reach the high notes. Dylan, you're right. His mom turns up the radio. Loud and sweet, the music fills every corner of the apartment. And together, Dylan and his mom dance. Together, they listen. So, this was a story about Joshua Bell. That's the man with the violin from the train station. Joshua Bell is a real person. He's still alive. He was born December 9th, 1967 in Indiana. He was a child prodigy, which means if you're a child prodigy, that means that even though you're still a kid, you've got the skill of an adult level professional. He's played all over, and I'm pretty sure that's the train station thing really did happen. I have one more story for you. This story is called The Dance of the Violin, and it's also by Kathy Stinson and Dusan Petrick, and it is about Joshua Bell. So here's the story of the man with the violin, but when he was a kid. From the time he was very young, Joshua loved making music. He drummed on pots, he trumpeted into cardboard tubes. After his parents found him strumming on elastic bands, they bought him a violin. When he played his first song, a twinkling star appeared above his head. I think that's probably fiction. It's a metaphorical star. When he learned other songs, whole stories poured from his violin. One day, Joshua rushed home from his music lesson. "Mom, Dad, I have to go to Kalamazoo." Kalamazoo is a city in Michigan. "What's in Kalamazoo?" "A competition. The winner gets to perform with an orchestra. Imagine me performing with a whole orchestra." Joshua showed his teacher the music he wanted to learn. The teacher shook his head. "This is a very difficult piece, even for adults. But I love it. It's soft and it's loud and it's fast, and this is your first competition. I hear a story in it about dancers being chased by a bear. A bear! Their ship gets lost at sea. I have to learn this piece." "In that case, Joshua, let's begin." Practicing the tricky fingering made Joshua's hands sore, but he was determined to get it right. He especially liked playing very fast. "Prestissimo! Slow down," his teacher said. The metronome helped Joshua play adagio. Adagio means slowly. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. Until weeks later, he got all the notes just right and was ready to speed up. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The day before the competition, Joshua's parents drove him to Kalamazoo. For 5 long hours, he practiced the music in his head. By the time they arrived at their hotel, Joshua's inside felt the way his violin sounded if the strings were tuned too tight. That night, he dreamt he was on stage and flubbed a switch from the E chord to the G. The audience laughed. "Ha ha 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 ha." "Don't worry," his dad said. "Everyone gets nervous before a competition." "No matter what happens," his mom said, "just remember that you love the music." Waiting for his turn to play, Joshua shifted nervously on his chair. He twiddled a loose thread on his shirt. He wiped his sweaty hands on his sleeves. The music one student played tickled every hair on Joshua's head and vibrated right down to his toes. Another student hit all the right notes, but they hung limp in the air like wet laundry on a clothesline. Next up, Joshua Bell. Joshua walked onto the stage and lifted his violin into position under his chin. He held his bow lightly but not too lightly. He carefully placed his fingers on the strings. His parents smiled, the judge nodded, and Joshua began to play. And almost right away, a small mistake, hardly noticeable. He kept going. Then his fingers stumbled, his bow stuttered, the notes wobbled and splat. Out tumbled the dancer flat on her face. Joshua stopped playing. The judge sighed. The competition was over. Joshua turned to leave the stage, but I'd really like to start over. The judge furrowed his brow. All right. Joshua took a deep breath and let out. Again, he placed his violin under his chin. Again, he raised his bow. Inside his head, 2 dancers appeared, poised to take their first steps. He drew his bow across the strings, and 2 more dancers appeared. Soon, the notes spilling from the violin were pushing, pulling a whole roomful of dancers here and there, this way and that. Red skirts swirled and black boots twirled. The dancers flung each other dizzily around and around the room until Joshua felt dizzy too. One final note, one final swoop, and Joshua knew from every hair on his head to the very tips of his toes that he had played better than ever before. His dancers circled round. One winked, one kissed his cheek. Then they lifted Joshua higher and higher until he could almost touch the stars. So, in my extra links, I will put a video of Joshua Bell, the person playing violin in both of these stories. But this week I wanted to talk a little bit about string instruments. And I have to tell you guys, it's one of the family of instruments that is not my strongest because I mostly play wind instruments. But string instruments, as you can guess, make noise by the strings on them. Violin is a string instrument. Earlier in this year, we learned about Ravi Shankar and his sitar. A sitar is a string instrument. In an orchestra, you might find violins. You'd find violas, which look like violins, but larger. You'd find cellos. Cellos are so large that you have to sit and hold it. And basses. It's spelled B-A-S-S, so when kids see it, a lot of times they think it's a fish. It's not a fish. A bass it looks like a violin, but it's so big that even if you're a grown-up, you have to stand up or lean on a stool to play it. So another string instrument, you might have the harp. And I would be a much cooler music teacher for sure if I played this instrument better. But this is a guitar. It is a string instrument. This is an acoustic guitar, which means it doesn't have anywhere to plug into. You might have seen electric guitars somewhere. You might have seen electric basses somewhere. Obviously, they both plug in. Electric bass has 4 strings, and an electric guitar and an acoustic guitar have 6. The bass that I talked about earlier that you have to stand up to play also has 4 strings. So does the cello, the viola, and the violin. A guitar has 6 strings, and if you've got the guitar like this, as if you're playing it, the thickest string is closest to your face, while the thinnest string is closest to your feet. And since the string is thicker or thinner, the thicker string is going to make a lower sound. You can also change pitches on the guitar. The guitar has something called the neck, and then there are frets. There are these metal things. You put your fingers, and then the string stops on the fret, and then the string, instead of being from here all the way to here, gets shorter and shorter. Oh, I'll do that again so you can see it better. So here's the lowest string, the E string. And as you shorten the string, it gets higher. That's kind of fun. Guitar players know how to put their fingers on the fretboard to make different things called chords, which is when you layer a lot of different notes on top of each other. So there's the guitar, and I got this last summer, and then tried to play it a little, but not too much. This is a ukulele. A ukulele has 4 strings, 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks a lot like a guitar, but it's a lot smaller. It's easier for me to play anyway. It's a little funny because usually, like if this was a violin, this would be the lowest sounding string and then all the way up to the highest here. That's pretty consistent, except ukulele has their strings kind of out of order. So this is the lowest sounding string on the ukulele. If it was a different instrument, you would expect it to be this one, but it's here. Yeah. It's easier for me because the frets are closer together, so I can move my fingers a little. What what I've been working on is trying to play You Are My Sunshine with the ukulele. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. I'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Still working on it. It's a lot of things to put together all at once, but I'll keep practicing. All right, friends. Yeah, I'll keep practicing. You keep learning too. Stay safe, stay healthy, and yeah, keep learning.